Hey, what is up? This is Jake Hofer with Exodus Trail Cameras. This week we have Terry Peer on the video version of our podcast. Terry is a GM at a manufacturing facility and also handles the marketing at Real World Wildlife Products. In this episode, we sit down after recording the Whitetail Cribs that is live from this last Wednesday and talk all about deer hunting, his strategy, and what he's learned from over the years. And just a really good whitetail conversation. If you haven't done so, be sure to check out his Whitetail Cribs episode. It's linked below in the description. And we hope you guys enjoy this. If you do, leave a thumbs up and a comment. Let's get in the interview.
Lights,
camera,
follow the trail.
ready to shoot.
If you know where a deer's bedding and you know where he's eating, that deer should be dead.
Camera.
If you're passive on a deer, what you're doing is you're teaching them.
I've got $30 in the Michigan record book. Everyone but one has had at least one previous wound on his body. Some had as many as 4.
Trail Cam Radio from the guys at Exodus.
Okay, it's September 9th, 10th. It's September 10th. Cameron just spit out his Ale 8.
When in Kentucky, you got to drink Ale 8.
Ginger ale. So that was Terry Peer just chiming in. We are in his home, in his studio, in his man cave, coming at you with another episode of Trail Cam Radio. Terry, we appreciate the hospitality. By far the most hospitable person that we've probably visited in the last 2 years.
Well, my mother taught me better. Everybody else, when they record Whitetail Cribs, kicks you guys out for the curb. We gotta. I wanted you guys to stay the night. We were gonna stay up and have fun tonight, but you guys gotta get on the road, and I guess I'll work tomorrow.
Yeah, we have some other things we gotta do tomorrow. But
maybe I should have said let's go hunting. You all would have stayed if that was the case, wouldn't you?
You probably would have had better luck with that. Yeah, you probably would have had better luck with that. But fabulous dinner on the grill, giant. I don't know. I probably had a 24-ounce New York strip.
I don't know if that was that big. But
it was giant.
Big steak, big great steak, big old baked potato, mushrooms.
Good. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
But we're not chefs. We're not cooks. I'm not a food connoisseur. It was good, but that's not what we're here to talk about.
Okay.
So I'm not going to botch up the intro. Oh, no, we've known each other for 4 or 5 years, probably
5 years.
Yeah, both in the industry. Obviously, you with Real World and Chasing Giants, co-host the podcast with Don Higgins. That's kind of how we've known each other, intermingled, hunted some relatively close properties in Illinois. But I guess give yourself an introduction, and for our listeners at least.
You know, the people that do know me through Real World, 2 of my really good friends, Don Higgins and Wes Delks, own the company. And I started just basically helping them out years ago when it started as a rebranding project. And I helped introduce them to some other people when they were going from Real World Wildlife seed to products. And it started out just, hey, give me an opinion on this to try to really help us give some direction from a company side. My background is I'm in manufacturing. I work for a very large company. Well, I shouldn't say large, that's relative, but we have about 1,000 employees in North America with a factory of about 650 people in northern Kentucky that build CNC machine tools. So it'd be like a computer-controlled engine or big lathe or drill, but there'll be machines as big enough that it's like 26 tractor trailer loads to move. We actually have a picture of one machine with 3 Humvees on the machine where we can go around and theoretically machine that big of an envelope. So my background is in business, and that's what I prefer to do. I got suckered into taking my love of hunting and wanted to be the TV show, pro staff. I got suckered into that years ago and quickly learned that, number one, I didn't have the credibility that I should even be doing it. Found myself in a weird spot where I was trying to be somebody I wasn't. On the episode of Cribs, we actually talked about the journey and that, unfortunately, some people try to get too far ahead in their journey. And when I got suckered into that, I really tried to be someone I wasn't, and that wasn't somebody that should have been giving advice to anybody else. You know, we talked about me shooting a buck in the butt. So I just backed away from it and really focused on my career. I have a great job with a great company. And then as my friend's company grew, they just needed some help on that side. They're both very accomplished, hunters, land managers. They understand, they're seedsmen, but they needed help on the business side. So it became just a, hey, Terry, what do we do about this? And every once in a while the role changes in what I do there. But if you see me around at a trade show, you'll see me out talking hunting just like anybody else, like
Right.
what we did. Probably the first time we met, I think probably at the Ohio Deer Classic was one of the first times we met in person, way back in the day.
I got a bad memory about some of that stuff. Yeah,
Yeah,
probably.
That was probably one of the first times we ever met. So I do not work for Real World full time, but I do help them with a lot of the strategic decisions that they have to make through on the business side. The Miscanthus release that we had this year was probably one of the most successful product launches in the outdoor industry in the last few years. That took a lot of strategizing that we spent a lot of evenings, on conference calls talking about that. And that's the kind of stuff I enjoy. But I'm not leaving my day job. It's a great gig and provides for my family. But it's fun getting to talk about hunting quite a bit.
It is. It's a weird mix, and you really have to. I know personally, I kind of keep my, as much as we talk about it, I try to keep my personal stuff kind of separated between the actual office time. Even though it's essentially my life revolves around trail cameras and deer hunting, and we talk about it on the podcast, and we do a ton of content on YouTube, educational stuff, value prop stuff to leverage some of our experience with trail cameras and different things that we're doing to help provide value for someone else that's maybe catching that video. But on the personal level, it's nice to be able to kind of draw that line and kind of keep things separate. So I respect
everybody kind of talks too about how much time I spend, which isn't a lot compared to Don and Wes and Janice and Dwayne. Those guys, that's their job. And when you actually look at it, I spend more time coaching fast pitch softball, girls fast pitch softball, than I do any of my dialogue with Don and Wes. And even when Don asked me to help co-host Chasing Giants, there's very little time spent with that compared to I pretty much live on a softball field the entire first 8-9 months of the year. So it's I coach high school, a high school team, and then I also coach a summer travel team. So it's all year round. So my passion, I do love hunting, but when you really look at it, my passion's working with kids. And if I can, some of these kids, they just come from really bad situations, and you never know. You might be whether you make a connection in the hunting industry or you make a connection, one young person or one person, you might be the only decent influence or decent person that they have. So you just have to remember that a little bit. But I enjoy both. But hunting was something that was passed to me by my grandfather. My dad didn't hunt, believe it or not. So I didn't grow up in a home. My dad was a minister, and his life revolved around the church. So he never took me hunting. My grandfather did, and I didn't really get into hunting until I was about 18, 19 years old. And then as I started meeting people, that were a whole lot better at it than me, I just had a really good mentor in life tell me, you listen more than you talk. And that's why I got away from that whole, 16 years ago with, I got a free bow from Matthews, and I was a know-it-all, and it just wasn't me, and I stepped away. But hunting is something that I think is the ultimate hobby and sport that people can enjoy for whatever season they are in the journey of it. Whether they're brown, it's down, I want back straps no matter what it is, to what really I've my journey's gotten to the point that I'm only targeting 5.5 years or older and trying to develop properties to learn as much as I can about them and hold them and be able to hunt them.
Yeah. I mean, that's really what that journey is. It's a combination. I mean, again, this is, I guess, my opinion, but self-reflection and self-growth, because you're doing it for yourself. And whitetail hunting, as much as, the culture, you look at the gun culture and hunting culture in Michigan and Pennsylvania and the camaraderie with camp and guys.
Yeah.
There's a social aspect to it, But it's really a selfish sport when you boil it down and ask yourself the question, like, why am I a hunter? And that's a simple question, but the answer is not always so simple.
The other thing that people don't understand is I mean, we're sitting in. I think my top 5 bucks average 160. I don't even officially score bucks. I might if I kill a net booner. That's on my list. If I kill a net booner, he's getting officially scored. But when you get to the point that you're really going after the animals that I'm chasing, it's very lonely. People don't realize that there's very few people that are going to undertake the discipline and the cautiousness that we have to do to try to kill the bucks that we have. And there is no deer camp. I've tried to do the lease with multiple guys, and it's just so frustrating because they don't take it like I want to take it at that level. So I respect those guys that, hey, it's time for me to get away from the wife for a little bit.
Right.
I might need to do that because I don't think we made mine happy upstairs. They thought we were still recording, and they were sitting in the driveway for an hour. So I might hear about that. Nah, she's fine. She's every great deer hunter, every good deer hunter has a supportive wife at home.
Yes, Cameron's not married yet, but I think he can.
Don't do it.
That's what everyone says.
No, I got
Attest
lucky.
to my wife.
I got lucky. I have an absolute saint. She puts up with me.
I think we all say that, whether we think we do or not.
My girlfriend hunts, so she kind of gets it.
I don't know if that's a good thing, man.
I think it is.
Is
I
it?
think I think she's different.
Okay.
She's different, guys. I've heard that line once or twice. This one's different.
I think she is.
That's
She has a similar passion that I do. Most
So-
guys are like, my girlfriend hunts. I'm like, yeah, does she really hunt though? And they don't really hunt. They don't get it.
Yeah. So, yeah, but I mean, I think that no matter what you do, if you're a devout Christian, if you're a golfer, if you're a fisherman, if you're a hunter, you look for ways to surround yourself with people that challenge you in that direction. If you're a recovering alcoholic, you don't hang out at a bar. I mean, it's just it's those things. So I've been very privileged in my short life to be, connected with some really, really great people that's mentored me and given me great advice, and I'm still learning to this day.
Yeah.
I enjoy the process. It's there comes a day where you just have to keep raising that bar and trying new things and doing different things. So
Right.
that's the beauty of the sport.
Let's talk about your resume. We're sitting down here in your man cave, and the body of work speaks for itself. I mean, absolutely phenomenal deer from a lot of different states, handful of different states, different weapons. So let's, I guess, to validate some of the stuff that we're going to be talking about, and we want to talk about a couple different things. We're talking about some early season stuff because season is in right now in Kentucky.
Yep.
You've already been on some deer, had some opportunities.
Yep.
And we want to shift gears into some of the trail camera stuff that you're doing.
Okay.
But, there's probably 12, 15 deer over 140 in here.
Yeah, that's probably about right. I have not shot a net booner yet. The hardest part about shooting a net booner is finding a net booner. But for the state of Kentucky, the hunting here is a whole lot better. We're a one buck state. So, I mean, I'm fortunate when it comes to that. I think it would be even more fantastic, even being a gun hunter, if they would shorten the gun season out of the rut and shorten it down, or leave it the same length and start it at Thanksgiving and hunt through December. But having that 3 weekend, it's 2 weeks, 3 weekends, high-powered rifle season, a lot of 2.5 and 3.5-year-old bucks get shot, which if that's what somebody's goal is, that's great. But from a management standpoint, I think that I think you would still kill 2.5 and 3.5-year-old deer, and people would be able to kill what they wanted. But there's a lot of reasons that DNRs make the decisions they do. Unfortunately, sometimes that's around financial,
100%.
But that's beside the point. But since we're a one buck state, we do have the chance now. There's some big frame deer in here that were killed in Kentucky that you don't see too often. But I'm in a pocket that's got some potential. So, I don't know. It's as far as my resume, I think I'm fortunate enough to have been able to be disciplined enough to accomplish goals. And I would say that's my biggest thing on my resume, and not the deer that I've shot, because there's been seasons that I've gone without killing a deer because I didn't settle at the end of the year for something just to shoot something.
100%.
So if somebody's going to ask me for what's on my resume as hunting, there's been years that I've said I can't do what I wanted to do. I'm just not shooting something, or I'm taking a kid hunting and letting him shoot the 3.5-year-old. I would like to be known, if we're talking about what's on our hunting tombstone, I would like to be known for that more than killing, a certain size deer. I really think that there's a lot of mentoring that needs to be changed in this industry as far as letting people understand the journey. I want to be one of those guys that I think I can help people understand the difference in how a 4-year-old buck is different than a 3-year-old buck, and how you have to change your mentality to hunt him. I think I can do a good job at helping people understand that through Chasing Giants, and then working with Don and his seminars and his master classes. But I've been very fortunate. I've put a lot of time, money, and effort into it, but at the same time, I've been able to hunt some very good properties too. And those guys in Pennsylvania have killed bucks just as big as any of these in here, and they're 120-inch deer, and they're still as hard to kill as these. It's just a different area in the country. So I think a lot of it is where you're at.
Yeah.
And for you either love him or hate him. But back in the day when we used to go to you two are too young for this. What am I talking about? We used to, Friday night, all the guys would get together and go to the rental movie place.
Okay.
And you had a choice of VHS tapes, and it was either Monster Bucks with Bill Jordan or Roger Ragland. Those were the two ones that we had. And we watched a lot of all of them. And I heard Roger say once, when you want to kill a big buck, you got to go to where the big bucks are. And, for some people it's just not possible, but a lot of people go to the Midwest looking for them.
Yeah.
And there's some great states, and Kentucky's on that list.
100%. I think that's a really respectable answer in the way you handled that question, and I think it speaks volumes to how humble of a person you are, and really what we talk a lot about in our company or our culture is intent is a big word, and I think the way you answered that shows your intent inside the industry and what you guys are trying to do, not only for yourself but the people that surround you too.
Yeah, and the when you look on the buck, I'll answer the question a little bit different way with what I've been successful of. And we even had this conversation about a different topic earlier. What's successful for me might not be successful for somebody else. The thing about deer hunting is every property you go to, you have to adapt to that property and your style of hunting. We were joking about the whole tree saddle thing that Don and I get on tangents about. and it's just funny at this point because we really don't have a problem with it. It was just a dumb joke that we started with that we kept rolling with because it was
I hope Wes listens to this.
Yeah. We always know when Wes listens to a podcast because we always put something in there that's a nugget for him. We'll get a nasty text. If we don't get it, we know he doesn't listen. But part of hunting is you have to adapt. And the properties that I hunt in Illinois are completely different than they are here. When I went to Kansas and shot this buck back here, that property was completely different than here. This buck over right here was Indiana. A little bit different than what it was here, but completely different than and I've gotten a lot of bad experience where I've hit deer, missed them, got blown out, completely got busted in other areas that I wasn't prepared to hunt. And so, it's a learning curve, and you continue to adapt. My biggest success when I went from the 6 bucks that are in the garage that we looked at, that they're all in the 115 to 130 range, and everything in here is, for them except for one, they're 5 years or older, is I learned how to hunt based on the time of year. And what I mean by that is I'm still convinced to this day that if you want to kill a buck that's 5 years or older, early season and late season are the two best times to kill him. And that is especially in the state of Kentucky where you open first Saturday in September. They're still in velvet. They're still in bachelor groups. They're still coming in a summer feed pattern. You basically got cattle coming out. And as long as you can be disciplined enough to not go in there and hunt them with the wrong wind and blow them out, again, it's a 5-6-year-old buck. If you booger that animal, your likelihood of getting another crack at that's done, right? It's not a 3-year-old. Or if you have food, getting them through gun season, and you can kill big deer in late season if you have food because you have deer from everywhere after all the ag fields. Now, are big deer killed in the rut? Absolutely. My MO has always been here since I've started killing older bucks is I try to get Kentucky done in September. I have my farm set up here to where it's a September farm, to be quite honest with you. And I have unlimited resources when it comes to food with food plots, seed, and feed. Most of the stuff that we test at Real World gets sent here, especially on the nutrition side with the feed and mineral, because they can't do it in Illinois. So I'm running tests all the time for them, but food is never an issue. But what I try to do is I try to get a target buck and get him down in September here. And most of these are early season bucks, the ones that are from Kentucky in here. And it's a special time, but you have to be disciplined.
So let's dive into your early season farm, your early season strategy, your early season tactics, because we're sitting here September 10th. We're 5 days into the season.
Yep.
When we came in, we were briefly BSing a little bit. We've already had some opportunities, already had some encounters.
Yep.
So let's break down how you're actually doing that.
Sure. So my farm has changed a little bit over the years. It's a family farm. My wife is the 5th generation.
So
it's cool. It's not as big as it used to be, and hopefully it'll be in the family for many more generations. It's set up. Most of the properties in Kentucky are not big blocks or squares like they are in Ohio and Indiana and Illinois. Basically, you have in this part of the state, you have ridges, and there's a road on the center of the ridge, and then there's maybe a house or barns on each side of the road, and then it falls off both sides. And then what we call hollers. You're in Kentucky, so we'll call them hollers. A lot of property lines are the creek bottom at the base of that hill. So depending on the farm, in a lot of cases, you might have multiple ridges or but most of the properties around here are long and narrow. So it makes it really difficult because I can't go around the backside of a section and get access point from there. There is no road over there. It's the next ridge over, and there might be 3 hollers. So what you have to do is, whether it's your farm or somebody else's farm, you have to set up a farm for early season on what the predominant wind's going to be. And that's been the biggest thing Don has really taught me is when you do go in, it has to be consistent and it has to be non-intrusive. So adding pressure to a buck is just as important in June, July as it is in October. So when I go into my farm, there's still a section of woods on my farm that I have not been in 6 years except to recover that deer. I haven't even been in there. I don't shed hunt it. I don't go in it. So, people talk about sanctuaries, but I try to do the same thing the same way every time I go in. Now, obviously, we raise alfalfa on it, and it's a source of income for my wife's grandmother who's still alive. So there is tractors and stuff like that are usually on the property. That makes it a little bit easier for me, in my opinion, because I can use those same pieces of equipment to get to my trail cameras, to fill my feeders, to do maintenance on tree stands or whatever I have to do, and it's not something crazy out of the way. My property in that I have access to hunt in Illinois never sees equipment on it. So, of course, if I go in there, that's something different. So in early season building up to it, I'm obviously alfalfa is key for me, which is crazy because Real World doesn't have alfalfa. We can get it for you, but it's so finicky, the average food plotter can't grow it. And you got to mow it and everything. But we have about 14 acres of alfalfa. It really allows me to plant soybeans and take the pressure off the soybeans. So I can get by with like 2 acres of soybeans, and
Not get demolished.
Saturday night I had 32 deer in the field. Okay, so it allows me to have that browse pressure to let the beans get established, and then late season, bam, they're on the beans. So food is key in early season, and what I've learned through dealing with the real world guys is you want a food that is that's going to be high in soluble protein and feed value. So what that means is your legumes, your clovers, your alfalfas are going to be really high. Your soybeans are going to be high, and I don't know. I wish I could ask a deer why. Most of the time in the properties that I know, they'll feed to the alfalfa and then transition to the beans after dark, and I don't know why. I don't know if it's just the properties that I have, or there's something about why they transition that way. So I try to set up those alfalfa fields and my food plot seed, or my food plots, and where I leave those sanctuaries for bedding, to where I have places that I can hunt. The problem with it is referring back to those long, narrow farms. I can only access my farm from the east. So for an example, Saturday night, we had a southwest wind. I have a spot for a southwest wind. I'm walking into the wind, going in. I use the crown of the ridge as cover, so if there's something bedded close watching the field, they can't see me. Or I can take the quiet cat bike in, get there. I've been seeing 3 shooters and 1 buck that I was just really torn on. I think he's pushing 150, but goodness gracious, he's only like 12 inches wide. It's like a skyscraper. He's really tall.
That's an awesome deer.
And I just wanted to see him in person. So Saturday night had a southwest wind. I used that crown, got in, and I had knee surgery, reconstruction 8 weeks ago. To hunt there, I had to get up a ladder. So that was interesting. I'm not supposed to do that, but first night of the season. Plus, I wanted to evaluate what was going on because I've been laid up all summer. So just awesome night. I mean, it was like God said, I need something to get me motivated for this season after being laid up all year. I'm going to put 32 deer in the alfalfa, and 3 shooter bucks, and the one that you wanted to see in person is going to be there where you can just sit there and glass them. So I didn't have a shot. I mean, I had a shot at a little small buck and a couple does, but got to sit there from further back with the right wind. Sunday night, I went back out, and knowing the consistency of early season bucks, and I've done a lot of trail camera studies to where I really believe, at least on my farm, that most of the time those mature bucks are accessing that alfalfa from the downwind side. So it was fluttering a little bit from a south-southwest to a southwest. I have one spot and it's on the ground that, knowing that I was going to have knee surgery, I had different places lined up to hunt from the ground because it's going to be October before I can get up in a tree. I went in to hunt them, those 3 bucks on Sunday night, and they got about 60 yards from me. The tall buck, narrow buck, he walked out at 32 yards. I didn't shoot him, and then it was tormenting because he walked back at 12 yards and turned around and walked back again at 12 yards from the ground. So it was just fantastic hunt. It was great. I got phone. I was videoing it with my phone from on the ground. He never saw me. But again, the discipline, that was the right wind. If I would have worried that wind shifted to the south, that would have blown straight into the bedding area, and I was gone. Monday night, it was holiday, so I was off. Could have gone hunting again. Straight south wind on Monday. So I was at the barn glassing. They came out and did the exact same thing. But if I would have hunted that night, I guarantee you those bucks would not have come into the alfalfa because they would have stayed in their bed or gone somewhere else, and I would have boogered them. So the whole early season, my belief is you get the food. If you're in a state that allows you to feed, pour it to it. I mean, that's probably going to get some hate mail, but that's okay. I have no problem hunting over bait. I know a lot of people don't like it, but teach their own.
It's a tool that you should consider to have in your arsenal, regardless of what.
It's your decision.
Yeah,
it's not somebody else's decision. It's your decision. With the ability to feed, having that food, whether it's a feeder, it's a food plot, whatever. But I think more big bucks are lost have lost opportunities because for the sake of being out there opening day or opening weekend, everybody sits back and they get pictures, daylight pictures of big bucks early season, and they're like, I got to go for it. I mean, I got an Instagram message today that what state opens this weekend? Is it Ohio? Is Ohio open Saturday?
September 26th.
So one of the neighboring states, and he's like, I got this big buck, and he showed up in the mornings. I need to go hunt him in the morning. It's the only time I can kill him. I'm like, you're going to bust every deer going in to get him out. So low intrusion and hunt the wind early season, and you'll put some big mature bucks down in early season. That's worked for me.
I got 2 questions on this, and I'm going to say them both. You don't have to answer them both, but I just want to get them off my brain so I don't forget about it. I have a bad habit of that. One is, we're in hill country, and one of the things in hill country is swirling winds and not knowing what the wind does when you have if you're hunting the backside of a ridge or a point, if you have a south wind, maybe it's wrapping around that point, and it's actually a west wind on your stand location. So I want to talk about that a little bit, and then I want to talk about what you're seeing. At what point in time do you see a shift, if any shift, as far as buck movement or patterns?
That's been a popular question the last 2 days. We've talked about that a lot. So the first question is, and I hope we get a little bit of chance to talk about when I move into rut mode versus early season.
Yeah, absolutely.
But in early season, it's even more critical. If you're hunting in an area that you get swirl or thermal or low-lying scent or whatever, you're in the wrong spot. Early season hunting isn't necessarily about going in and having to do it today. Early season hunting is about strategic. It's a chess game, not checkers. And you go in and I mean, you can sit in the stand the entire hunting season and start coming up with ideas of how am I going to hunt next September, because these deer are going to come from this direction. What can I do over there? Maybe it's take a bobcat and build a Donald Trump Mexico wall brush pile with a cave in it to be able to set back in it, and have that done in February to where I'm there with that wind. I can pick those deer off. It's strategic in early season, and I really believe that preparation and discipline makes that happen. If you're in a spot where you have swirling winds, to answer your question, I don't go down in the bottoms. I'm hunting ridge tops with food that's laid out specific to where bedding area is. So if I know where this bedding is and I know where my food is, I've over the last year tried to figure out. I knew I was going to be down with a knee surgery, right? So as soon as I hurt my knee and I knew surgery was coming, that's all I was doing. I mean, you can go to my Instagram page. We were logging a couple big dead oaks out of the back in February, and there was a pile of logs that I never got out. I took the front end loader and made them into a V to where it's a blind now. It's been sitting there because that's one of the spots that I need to be able to hunt. So I believe if you're in an area that is swirling winds because of ridges, hill points, don't hunt there. It's too dangerous.
Right.
The second question was what? Remind me.
The shift.
So, everyone talks about bachelor groups breaking up, deer leaving green food sources or ag ground, moving to acorns.
I see it more in Illinois than I do here, but it's for a bad reason, because most of the time I'm already tagged out and I'm not watching anymore.
That's fair.
When I go in and say I'm watching bucks June, July, August, and if I can tag out in September, I've already started running trail cameras in Illinois, but that's where my focus is. And I don't even go back really to hunt my farm until I'm taking my kids rifle hunting. So I don't necessarily know I can answer that intelligently. It's a cop-out answer, but I honestly don't know. I just know that my farm doesn't get hunted to the south or west, and it gets hunted really hard to the north. And it's World War III. So I use that as my advantage. I have this crazy idea that I don't want to kill does on my farm because I want every 1.5-year-old buck locked down with a doe because I don't hunt during the rut here.
Right.
So I don't care if I don't see bucks chasing. I'd rather that 1.5-year-old, instead of out cruising, lock them all down.
Right.
Because that just means he's not getting shot somewhere else. I mean, does it work? I don't know. but that's my crazy logic to it. But to say that bucks here on my place will shift, I could find out for you. I got enough trail camera data. When you run 50-some trail cameras, you could go back. I could narrow it down pretty well. The bachelor groups do bust up, but when you're able to try to kill your target buck in September, I'm not really watching where he goes after that, except the taxidermist.
No, there's a topic that we talk about, annual data. We're using trail cameras a lot, and the first person that I ever remember, and this is pre-Exodus days, okay? So this is 2010, 2011, 2012. Don was probably the first guy.
Same time, same place article.
Yeah, it was something like that.
That was the first one that came out. Yep.
And that was probably 10 years ago, maybe.
At least.
Yeah, I'm not real certain. But do you see that same thing happen with bucks in the summer? I mean, you're watching deer June, July, August, September here in that Kentucky farm.
Yeah. I mean, and I shouldn't say I don't know, because there's bucks that disappear. We had a really, really wide 10-pointer here 3 years ago. I wish I knew what happened to him. But I would have him early season, and then he would disappear when the bachelor groups came. But then I would maybe get 1 or 2 pictures of him in late season. But they definitely go somewhere. The cool thing about some of the analogies that Don's done in his master class that just click, because when you're there, you can actually see it. It's really hard to describe it. But imagine, I don't know if I have anything in here that will work for a display, but take an oval that's like this, okay? And then you have this other oval that's like this, and those ovals keep going around, okay? So you have this core. Well, those bucks that are in your core, that's your farm right here, they summer there, okay? But a buck usually, what I've learned from Don is a buck will usually go in the same direction as they shift every year, okay? So the bucks that go to here are usually doing that shift. And, some of his data says that right before the rut, a buck will make a run back sometimes to its summer pattern to see if there's a hot doe there before where he's at. And then in late season, a lot of times they'll come back. But just imagine that core, and you got this shift here where bucks that go north, and this shift here, and this shift here, and this shift here, and this shift here, right? Well, what you want your property to be is you want your property to have everything possible that a deer wants, because you're not always worried about the deer that are here when the start. You want the deer coming, and you want to be the intersection point of all those other fingers of the bucks traveling. And the more does you hold, the more bucks that are going to come to there to check for it. So think about it like a clock, and think some bucks run from the center hub to the clock to 1 o'clock, then some run to 2 o'clock. But there's another clock right beside you that you want to be where the bucks are going. And Don's really laid that out for me, and how can we make our property different that it has the things to attract those. And they definitely disappear. They come back. And then the odd thing that just messes everything up is then you have the homebodies that never leave.
Yep.
And I wish we could ask them why they don't and why some do, but it's just part of, I think, the personality of a deer is different between everyone. Don shot Smokey, the 206. He never left. But some of the bucks that we've been chasing, you can count on it within a 2-day window. 3rd week of October, they're back.
Yeah.
One of the target bucks that he's going to have this year, he actually posted the picture of it the last day of he was posting an up-a-comer or a target buck every day last week on Chasing Giants and Higgins Outdoors. That buck does not summer on him. Not him, but the property that he has to hunt. So, but like clockwork, and the property luckily is close enough that he can keep an eye on it. Like clockwork, he's there, and he's there for a period of time, and then he's gone again. So I think annual data, Mark Drury's talked about that a lot too. I think annual data is so important. And, you guys being trail camera guys, people that just go and look for the buck, take a picture of their screen with their cell phone and say, oh, here's a good buck, and they're not keeping that data for years and years and years and years, are really missing a vital part of hunting mature bucks.
Yeah, I was that guy 3 years ago. And I've almost changed my trail camera strategy like 180 degrees, and I'll set cameras in places that I don't plan on checking at all, knowing that I'm not going to go there, let the camera soak for the year, and then I have, in my opinion, a leg up for next year. So
yeah, unfortunately, trail cameras save more deer than they kill. And it's not about the trail camera. It's about the people that can't stay away from them. And it's like the addiction to see that picture. They're in there. Cameras. They're in that too much. I'm telling you, these bucks, when they get older, they're a different critter.
Yeah.
Hope that answered both of your questions.
It did. It actually sparked a couple other questions here that we want to dive into.
And I feel weird answering this stuff because this is usually where I just look at Don and say, "You answer all this stuff." I'm just the marketing guy.
So one of the common things that we've talked about in your personal journey is hunting mature deer. So there's obviously for people who are at that point in their hunting career, a lot of guys are talking about home ranges shrinking on a mature deer, how mature deer are different than, 5-year-old deer is different than 3.5-year-old deer. So as you're at that stage right now, like what are some of the things that you're seeing? I mean, obviously
I don't have data that says to honestly say that a home range shrinks or it stays the same or it grows. I don't know that. I just know that a deer will not tolerate pressure, period, when it gets older. And the discipline that then you have to take as a hunter to not hunt the wrong wind, to not go in, and I'm not even going to say you can't check your trail cameras every week. It depends on the situation. If you're on a working ag farm that has traffic on it, now I'm not saying run the 4-wheeler down the path in the woods every week. I'm just saying, have your trail cameras in places that you can get to that's not intrusive. Every property is a little bit different, but the biggest thing for me is I honestly, I'm not going to go out there and speak out of turn. I don't have the data that says a home range shrinks. I know that some deer, they stay close, some deer travel. The best part about me having that lease that I told you about in Indiana, where I shot that deer opening night and only got to hunt the lease, less than 2 hours, is that farm was 600 acres. It was the first time in my hunting career that I was running trail cameras on that big of a block of area. And to see how much some bucks traveled and some bucks didn't was eye-opening to me.
Yeah.
And then, you talk about like Trump, the big deer that Don shot the same year he shot Smokey. He was getting pictures of that deer like 7 miles apart within like 26 hours of each other. So I just think to draw a generalization with no more data than what I have, I'm not going to do that. But I will say that what I have learned is you bump or pressure deer older than 4.5, you don't have maybe more than one more shot at him, and he's gonzo.
Yeah.
You might bust him to nocturnal to where he's still there if you got a good enough food source, and there's nothing else around. But your likelihood of seeing him in a pattern or at the same time until the rut happens is next to nothing. So that's the biggest thing that I've learned. It's about intrusion when the buck gets older.
So, in your opinion, like if you do make that mistake and you get busted, you bump a deer, whether that's you're out scouting, doing in-season stuff late.
Yeah, it happens.
Whatever. So, in your opinion, is that deer like up and moving properties, or is and again, it's
what that deer's comfortable with, what the situation there is. I don't know that there's a rule of thumb. It's not going to be an excuse to say I'm not going to try. I definitely think that you probably lay off the area a little bit and get some intel to see, if it's like early season right now and I accidentally walk out and he's standing in the alfalfa and I walk up on him in the dark. I'm not hunting the next couple of nights. I'm sitting back glassing to see if that deer shows up and, giving that a break. The last thing you want to do is do it twice.
Right.
But at the same time, I don't think you just use it as an excuse to cop out. You still try to adapt. That's part of the sport is you adapt and try to put another plan together based on it. One of the stupid things that I came up with years ago that in early season I do is like if I'm walking out a ridge that I only have one access point and you need to hunt, say, into that ridge a little bit more, but I have to walk back through that food source to get back to the truck, I'll take a Fox Pro coyote call and leave it in the middle of the ridge, and I'll bust those deer out, but it's going to be with that call of a coyote that I have running around everywhere else, but it's not me blowing on a mouth call giving up my position. I know Kyle Harmon, Team Radicals, had really good luck. He calls his grandpa and has him drive the truck out and blows the deer out with the truck. I try not to do that because but if I have that as a choice versus blow the deer out with me walking out, I'm going to do it every time. But
That's interesting because we've this is the second podcast today that we've done, and that's the second time that exact strategy has come up. Yeah.
And it was the first time we've heard it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I have a Fox Pro I carry with me. It's they're only this big, but good grief, the remote works really far away on these little things now, and they're not heavy. You keep good batteries in them, and you get deer in the middle of the field. You light that thing up, and then you get out of there.
So my question with that is, how worried are you about your ground scent at that point? Like, they didn't see you, but they're obviously going to come back to that field and you have to walk through it. How worried are you that they're going to catch your ground scent?
Well, you can't have everything in life. You try to do what you can, but you always try to be in a entrance exit point to where the wind's not blowing where you don't want it to be. But to say that you're never going to leave a scent walking across the field, I don't know how you really avoid that unless you can parachute in. So you just try to do what you can. When I've hunted cattle farms before, I'll go walk through the cow manure. I mean, I've tried everything. Whether it works or not, I don't know. Half of this game of chasing big deer is what you have confidence in and what you think works. But I'm not going to go out and say something does or something doesn't work. I wear rubber boots. Don doesn't even spray down. I still spray down. But I try to walk there's a middle lane down the road that doesn't have any food in it. It's just a mowed lane. Before hunting season, I scalp it as low as I can. That's the only place that I walk through that. And when I veer off to go to my hunting spot, I try to do it not in the alfalfa. But I think it's more important to not have the wind blowing to where the bedding area is or where the travel corridor is than worried about, some rubber boots leaving a blade of grass a funky smell on it.
That's something that we battle with a lot down in West Virginia where you're hunting, is we want to set our access up to a point where we don't have to cross the deer's trail. Well, it's impossible. You have to cross his trail at some point. And that's something we battle with all the time, is like, if he catches my ground set, is he going to come back? Do I have one shot at that deer where he smells my footprint and he's like, I'm out? Because you're talking about a 5.5-year-old deer, you bump it one time, he's gone.
So see, what I would do is while you're sitting in the stand, this is how crazy I get. While you're sitting in the stand and you're saying, that's the path and I need to get from here to here, I change the path of that deer. I go in that February and I drop trees or I do whatever I have to do.
Ground.
Now that's the public guys are more hats off to you because, like I said, that's where I'm going.
Yeah, right.
I do things to try to change the path of the deer, but and that's the other thing I was talking about earlier. When you hunt the wind, that's how it completely shifts in the rut, because then for the pre-rut and rut, I'm identifying where's my bedding area, not necessarily where my food's at. And I'm hunting the downwind side of bedding through the whole rut. And that's my out-of-state bucks that are in here. All of them have been killed on downwind side of bedding area where they're cruising to, scent check that downwind side.
Yep.
So then it's when you find the secret sauce is how can I get to the downwind side, or how can I have different bedding to where I can get in and out without the scent blowing into the bedding. That's the secret. And when it clicks, it clicks. I mean, it's as simple as that.
Are you doing any wind mapping or anything while your different sets, whether you're using like milkweed or like little wafers or smoke or anything like that?
You mean to check the wind?
Yeah, to see where your scent cone's going or to see what it's doing at different times of the day.
I don't hear in Kentucky. I have a wind sock.
Mm-hmm.
So like I've driven to the farm is 7 miles from here, so I'll look at that wind, and if it's fluttering at all, I've gotten back in the truck and left if it's the wrong wind. In Illinois, I've changed area. I carry one of, it's probably over there I can see it right now. It's over there next to the boxes of slugs. There's a little talcum powder thing where you can check it, but it's the whole thing. We get the question a lot on Chasing Giants podcast is, well, I'm in an area where the wind swirls, or I'm in an area where the thermals. You're in the wrong area. Keep looking. There's going to be a spot somewhere on that downwind side of a bedding for a different direction wind. You can probably hunt the same bedding area most of the time. Just find a different wind direction to where you find that right spot.
Yeah.
And it's really tough until you see it and see it works. That's part of your journey.
Yep.
To have somebody, it's surround yourself with people that have been through it, and you learn faster. But I still believe that if you're in those borderline areas that you're talking about, you're in the wrong area. And are you going to kill a 3.5-year-old there? Yeah, probably. Are you going to occasionally kill? But to do a 5, 6, 7-year-old buck every year, it's a tough way to be consistent.
I've seen some of the spots that I hunt are the wind it wreaks havoc regardless of where you are. And it's a difference sometimes. You're saying area, but in my mind, I'm going through different scenarios where I know the wind does something on a certain direction, and that you're saying different area, but that location for me sometimes is less than 100 yards, or maybe it's a different elevation on that ridge.
Absolutely.
So
it could be 3 trees over.
If it's around a point or something.
Yeah, I mean, you could, or look where your trail is, and that's why I like when there's snow on the ground, looking at a piece of property. So when there's snow on the ground in January after the season's over, you can really get a feel for what's going on. But thick stuff. I like thick stuff because I don't go in it, but I can see where they're going in and out of it. And I hunt edges a lot. I'm very rarely going back into timber. And I know a lot of guys that are successful doing it. It's just not my MO. I've been more successful on edges. Getting between 2 points, and whether it's the downwind side or whatever. But the other thing I really like is old cattle pastures.
That's a little odd because typically guys are talking about, oh my God, it's a working cattle farm.
No,
Deer
not
don't like cattle.
Old.
Yeah.
So it was a farm that 20 years ago was a cattle pasture,
Uh-huh.
and nobody's done anything with it. You talk about some of the best bedding in the world.
Yeah.
As something that used to be a cattle pasture years ago, because what's happened in old cattle pastures is it used to be clear. There weren't any big mature trees with canopies, so the undergrowth, it's a jungle as it comes up all together. You find those areas, that's one of the things that I actually look for.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because you don't, to go into mature woods, you got a canopy. Usually it's pretty thin underneath.
Right.
But yeah, I think that people cop out a little bit too much and say, I want to hunt this area. Be a little bit more strategic, and like you said, it might be within 100 yards, but position yourself to where you have that angle. The old saying is, it's almost the wrong wind for you, but what is it? But it's the right wind for the deer.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're cutting it that close, but that's all it takes is for that little bit of scent to drift.
Slice the pie.
Yep, that's exactly right. And and then when it comes back to late season, it's all about food, dude. I mean, that's as simple as it gets.
Let's kind of transition here, and we've kind of focused this conversation on early season. I know we've jumped around a little bit, and talked about some different rut stuff, hunting downwind of doe bedding, which I think is a pretty common.
There's no secret there.
Yeah, you find the does, you get downwind, and that's kind of it. Maybe pinch points or travel corridors or different terrain features that are going to funnel deer.
You've had those podcasts before.
Exactly. So let's look into some of the October stuff, because there's a lot of guys who will kind of void or cross off October and not do anything until the later part of October, that pre-rut, the 23rd-ish, last week of October.
Right.
So what's kind of your stance and strategy around October? Specifically, let's go prior to pre-rut.
Well, it's a little different for me. Hopefully, assuming I'm tagged out in Kentucky.
Right.
And for most of the last 10 years, I think there's only been one or 2 years in the last, 10 years I haven't been tagged out in September. I'll primarily shift the first week of October to hunting the right wind property in Illinois, which is not my best rut stands usually. They're usually edges of fields, depending on where the crops are picked. All depends on the crop rotation up there for me. But it's a chance for me to go up. Sometimes I'm running camera for Dawn, if it's just an opportunity to go up there. So first weekend of October, I'm usually in Illinois. I can't tell you the last time I've hunted first weekend of October in Kentucky. Second weekend of October, I'm back in Kentucky every year for youth rifle, taking one of my kids, which I only have one kid that hunts that's eligible for that then. Third week of October, if for some reason I wasn't tagged out in Kentucky, I'd be muzzleloader hunting here in Kentucky, or back up in Illinois. And as far as tactics, I'm not pushing the envelope for my rut stands and burning those out, but I am hunting, and probably the biggest objective is learning. But it really depends on what the crops on the farms that we have to hunt. It's my farm's going to be different than the farm you have in Ohio or the farm in Missouri or wherever. Good grief, two farms in the same county can hunt completely different. But if I have standing beans that happen to be that year, they're still green in them, I'm hunting inside corners and still hunting some food, very low intrusion. But I'm still hunting.
Are you doing that all in the evenings at that time of year?
I won't hunt mornings until probably around Halloween.
What's your thought process behind that?
You can't get in without blowing deer out. At least I don't have a property. Now that we sell miscanthus, I've already told Dawn, my theory on morning hunts might be completely different, because if I can plant 6 rows of miscanthus 600 yards from the barn to an elevated blind over alfalfa, and I can get all the way in a tunnel and back out with the right wind, I might go for it.
And that's because you're hunting primarily edges and food sources,
to
not
get
necessarily
down in,
getting
like
into
you guys that go into public land. Again, that I just tip my hat to the guys that consistently do it in public land, because you're having to get to where other people aren't, and you're going back into thick cover and trying to manage pressure, and it's just every situation's different. And that's really what aggravates me most about this industry, is people get on these soapboxes and say, this is the only way, or this is my way. I can have 2 adjoining properties that are completely different with 2 different style hunters. There could be a saddle hunter here and a box blind hunter here, and they're completely different with how they go about it, and they can both be successful.
That's the biggest thing.
My takeaway is, you want to kill a mature buck, don't push it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, be strategic.
That's everything else around that. Come up with your game plan based on that property, and I'm probably even more 30,000 foot vague than even Don is, because he's very meticulous about a lot of things. But I've just gotten to the point that I accept the fact that there's people that are very successful that do things a different way than I do. But when you really look at what the common things are, we both have understanding wives that allow us to spend a lot of time and money, and number 2, neither one of us are pressuring deer and hunting wrong winds. Mm-hmm. And we're not intrusive. Outside of that, you can be, but I guarantee you both of those 2 first things are going to be common with guys that are laying down mature bucks every year.
Well, I think one of the things, and again, this goes back to one of the points that we constantly talk about in our content, is there are no shoebox answers that work for everyone. And that's the hardest thing. I feel like everybody wants that magic sauce. Here's the answer. You take this and do this on your farm, and you're guaranteed to kill a booner. Like, it just
every year.
Every year.
It's not going to happen.
Exactly. But to your point,
but October is a little bit different. I mean, you got and I think the weather dictates so much in October, because you get a cold snap that comes through. I do not believe there's early ruts. I think the rut is the same time every year.
Agreed.
I think your sightings, or what you see, is dictated by weather. I think weather trumps moon, but moon's just behind it. And but I think there is some. I mean, the moon affects everything. You go back to the old Farmer's Almanac, and two rocks laid side by side in two different moon phases. One will be below ground in 10 years. One will be up. I mean, it's weird, but fishing, same thing with the moon. I think there is some stuff to it, and guys like Adam Hayes, they study that stuff and come up with the different cycles. But I still think that you end up with pressure change and cold weather in October, you better be in a stand somewhere. Just because it's in the middle of October lull. Now, if it's 92 degrees, I'm probably back glassing somewhere.
Right.
But if I have a changing weather temperature, that's the beauty about the property we have in Illinois, is it's 3 hours away. So, I don't have unlimited vacation time. I work a normal job 8 to 5. I see the right weather, I'm taking a half day off work. I'm driving up there and hunting, maybe spend the night, maybe driving back after dark. But that weather, I think the weather is the biggest thing in October.
See, that's something that's very interesting. Again, going back to that podcast that we just did this morning, we focused that conversation around the moon, and we focused it specifically around the new moon. And my question to him was, is there any point in the new moon phase that you're like, okay, I'm not going to hunt? And he said, absolutely not. He said that one of his target bucks is almost 180-inch deer. He saw 2 nights consistently in the daylight, 95 degrees on a new moon. And it's just so the shoebox answer again is the same way, because now you talk to you and you're like, okay, 95 degrees, I'm not hunting. That's it, point blank. And he's like, well, the new moon on a 95 degree day in October.
I might hunt. It just depends on what direction the wind's blowing.
Yeah,
that's what it really comes down to. I mean, it's just I'm not going to drive to Illinois for a 95 degree sit in October.
Because there's better days.
That's just my analogy was, is I'm not driving and taking vacation time to go hunt. Yeah. If I see a drop in temperature,
it's just it's funny how people base their hunts around certain things. Like you're like weather trumps moon. Moon trumps weather in that moon phase. So
it's what each guy has had success with, right, and what they have, again, back to what they have confidence in what works. And usually there's probably something to everybody's,
Yep.
But I think there's definitely something to it. I've talked to Adam. We sat down and had a long talk at ATA about it, and he's going to his moon guide on a phone app now, and trying to give a little bit more resources to hunters to try to do it. And I never put a lot of confidence in it, to be honest with you, but he just told Don, Wes, and I the last few years, said, put the date down and then he started going back and then labeling there was some secret. There was some. Now, did we recognize it? No. But and that's the other thing is people have different jobs that have different access to. Some guys, they have to plan a week's vacation a year in advance and just pray that the weather's right. And sometimes it works and sometimes it don't. But I'm not going to take the little bit of vacation time I do just because it's a red moon and 90 degrees to go to. I mean, everybody's got their own thing, but I'm not gonna take vacation time to go do it. Now, if it's whatever moon and it had a 25 degree temperature drop and a pressure change,
I'm in the stand.
I'm rolling.
Yeah,
agreed.
I think that's a pretty common thought process there around the weather. Like the
weather trumps moon.
October's just so finicky. I mean,
with the moon? I know it's such a subjective topic, and I'm on the fence whether or not it does anything or not. Like you mentioned fish, the feeding cycles around the transit times. But there's guys that talk about moon phase, and there's guys that talk about the brightness or illumination of the moon, regardless of the moon phase, like what cloud cover does to deer being social at night. So when you're looking at me like, yeah, I don't know. I'm right there with you. But do you think is it when you're looking at some of this stuff, do you think the moon phase is a bigger deal? Do you think it's the illumination of the moon, or is it the transit times, like the overhead underfoot stuff?
When
like,
the little app says 1 deer or 5 deer on whether you're supposed to hunt or not, that's the extent of my expertise. Dude, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's
Who knows?
That'd
be a better conversation for another podcast guest.
Well, it's something that we always want opinions on because it's subjective. Like everybody has a different answer. It'd be different if like we sat down and we've done I don't know, close to 200 interviews now, and we've talked about the moon a lot. If someone said it's this, it's a waning or a waxing crescent, and then you said
I had to, it was this.
Right, but if someone said if it was a consistent answer, it would just be like, okay,
I get it. Yeah, because everyone says if there's a big temperature drop, hunt.
Yes.
We get that. No, that's accepted everywhere.
Yeah.
The moon is one thing that just nobody agrees on, and to me, it's like
I have no clue.
Yeah,
well, that's what it is. Like
I guess I don't put a lot of weight into it because I'm not educated enough to.
So it must not, in my opinion, then like it must not matter that much. If there's people that are, and they don't pay attention to the moon, like.
But if I was a person that could hunt 62 days straight, yeah, I'd probably get into that. But when I'm limited, I spend more vacation time every year putting food plots in and doing habitat than I do actually hunting. If you actually look at how I spend my vacation time, there's more on the prep side than there is actually hunting.
It's interesting.
But I have it where I'm pretty confident that when I do go hunting, I got a good chance of killing something.
Yeah. You're increasing your odds, maximizing
the number of deer that are in this room that were killed as a double the same day as my hunting partner that goes up there is astronomical. It's crazy. Wes Delks was here to hunt opening weekend, and he slept down here in this room, and we went down to Pat's house, and we started counting them. It's like, okay, I shot this deer the same deer Terry shot this deer. Because we both have gotten to the point that when we go hunting and we pick the spot and the time, we have a good chance of killing that animal. I hunt less now than I ever did, to be honest with you.
That's another common thing with a lot of guys that are very successful.
Less is more.
Yeah, less is more.
But why? It goes back to that intrusion.
Yeah.
I'm still you'll find different people, and I've watched your all's crib show a lot, and you'll find different people that have different techniques, and and there might be situations where we poke fun at somebody's technique or something like the love swing. But it's in good fun. If you're successful at it, buddy, I'm going to pat you on the back and say, go do it again. That's awesome.
Right.
But those guys that have something in common, I guarantee you one of them is going to be intrusion.
Yeah. That's one thing that Chad was saying that he wanted to do was like what Don did with dissecting the what did he say, the 10 points of the big buck serial killers.
Yep.
And it's, if you like go down the list, you're like, and then you point out a guy like, okay, we did a Cribs episode with him. Let's go back to Don's points.
It's one of those,
right?
Yeah. Or maybe multiples.
Usually multiple.
Yeah. So,
there's a lot of things. Being meticulous with your deer hunting life is one of the things that...
Even outside of deer hunting.
I think overall people, especially younger hunters, want to get to that point very quickly, and they're looking for the gadget or the gimmick to get them from there. And whether it's the latest cover scent or whether it's ozone or whether, I'm not saying that stuff can't help, and this might even be a good segue into the cell cam test, but what I tell people is the fundamental goal of hunting is you want to catch an animal when he doesn't know you're there and not pressured. And a lot of times that could be done in jeans and a t-shirt.
Right.
If it's done correctly. You don't need, and trust me, dude, I am a camo snob. I mean, there's more money in Sitka in this room than it would probably disgust you. So don't get me wrong. But the thing about it is if we as hunters step back and say, I'm not going to buy this $130 trinket, and I'm not going to buy this $50 gimmick, and I'm not going to do, and I'm going to pull my money up, and I'm going to invest in something that's quality, that's going to give me a true tool to use year after year, then the next year I can save up those $20 and $30 and $40 different gimmicks and tools and buy something else. And then by the time I'm 4 or 5 years old, it's not like I have unlimited funds to have that Quiet Cat and to have that enclosed trailer and to have a side-by-side. It's because I'm not out here every other time saying, where's the gimmick? You can't get from point A to point Z without a lot of steps in there. And there's not a secret sauce out there that says, you do this, you're going to kill a booner. You do this, you're going to catch a 10-pound largemouth. Are there the guys that throw a bobber and a night crawler out there and catch a 10-pound bass once in their lifetime? Right?
Yep.
Right? It's possible. It's the same guy that's going to go out in his Carhartt and kill a booner, a 200-inch deer, but for him to do that, repetitively, he's going to have the rangefinders and the $50,000 bass boats and travel all over the country, and it's the same thing with deer hunting. I'm pretty sure of.
Yeah, I think we have similar mentalities there on the gear side of things. So let's use that as a segue. I mean, this is going to be a longer episode for us. We're over an hour in. Let's use this to segue into what you guys are doing with your cell cam testing, because it's something that is not an overnight process for you. I know a lot of guys will test cameras and they strap them side by side in a tree and walk away, and a week later they've come out with the new latest greatest product review and they know everything from top to bottom on what's going on. And it's bad information, it's very misleading, and unfortunately that has become the new norm with a lot of content that not only put out there, but
they all call you and want a free camera to do it too.
All the time.
So this started as don't get me wrong, I'll be completely transparent. This was a way for us to gain engagement and more people to follow Data with Chasing Giants podcast. But at the same time, it would have been a whole lot easier for me. I think we invested right at $1,500 into 6 cameras that we wanted to test, and basically we took about around a $300 price point camera, cell cam and down, and we didn't test every one of them because I can't afford to buy every one of them, but the ones that were kind of getting the most buzz, we wanted to just test them and say, okay, what's the good, bad, the ugly? The bottom line is, I do believe in a business world, all of those cameras have a place. There's somebody that owns that company that's selling it for a target market. My problem with the whole thing is there's not good, tangible data to help people make the right decision for what they need. So somebody running a cell camera on a feeder, that deer's going to be there for 9 minutes.
Static environment.
That's completely different than somebody running it on a trail, and it's completely different than somebody who runs it on a scrape and in different weather conditions. So our goal was, number one, was just to get engagement, but number two is to help people with true data to help them make the best decision for them. Some people, they're going to say, I got $120 to invest in a camera. Why not be a cell camera?
Right.
And that's where they're at. Hey, but I want to provide that person the bookends to say, if you spend that $120 on a cell camera, on a $120 cell camera, this is what you're getting. Don't fall for the crap that's out there with advertising, because let's face it, the cell camera market is just a race to who can make it the cheapest to the market. The other thing that I see with being in manufacturing is I'm a nerd when it comes to looking at the actual unit and how it was made. Most of this stuff is either most of it's an injection mold and the tooling that goes into it to build it. I am confident that a couple of these cameras at the lower price point, they won't last through the year just because of how they're made, and it's just because of my knowledge of the manufacturing side. The thing people forget is this is a digital camera and a cell phone inside of a plastic box that sits out in the weather.
Yep.
Okay?
Yeah.
So again, if somebody's only got $120 and they want to get a cell camera, great, go buy you a $120 cell camera. But my point is if you're able to save up a little bit more money, what does getting into that next tier? And the 3 cameras that I chose to be in that next tier was your all's Exodus Render, which we have had experience with. It's the I think you told me it's the same, guts outside of the cell side is the Lift 2, which I have several of, the Browning Strike Force, which I have quite a few Browning cameras, and then there's a company in Louisiana called Wise Eye that I wasn't real familiar with, that I gave them a shot just because they were in there. And I really didn't have a goal of coming out and saying this is the best camera. My goal was to say, these are the bookends for this camera at this price point. This is the bookends for this one. This is the bookends for this one. This is the bookends for this one. Make the right decision with true facts, not marketing gimmicks. And I think overall it's been very well received. Every camera is going to have pluses and negatives to it. Every camera is going to work a little bit better in this situation. There's always social media trolls that I get up on a soapbox and just, it's funny. When we started chasing giants, Don would get off on the tangents and he'd be like, through this cell camera test, I'm firing back at Don's the one that's like, okay, let's calm this one down a little bit. But it's, I mean, the bottom line is I refuse to call anybody and say, give me a free camera, because I've been on that side of it with seed testing. I wanted to do this as an investment that tell to everybody. Now, I do have some friends that gave me some industry discounts to save me, $50 or whatever on the camera. And that was appreciated, but I still paid for the camera. I'm still paying for the data. I'm running 6 of them right now on the same farm in Illinois. They're in different situations. I told everybody, I went up there a week before I was supposed to be walking without crutches and hung 6 trail cameras on a Quiet Cat bike, and not pedaling, just zooming around. I think I rode that bike like 6.2 miles that day, trying to get from spot to spot, and I could only take so much, and I should have taken a pole saw in, and I put the Exodus camera in a location that needed a limb cut, and I didn't cut it, and now I don't know if it's just the weather and how it's drooping, or it's cracked and broke down. So Don's actually had to help me. Don's running a render or an Exodus camera also. So he's helped me out with some content, but it's taking the pictures. It's just, it's got a big blob in the center of it. It doesn't look very pretty. But my goal isn't, I still think at the end of this, I'm going to make a decision for what I'm going to run, because I still haven't found one that I'm confident in. The 6 that I started with, I had a bias going in that I know I'm not going to run 3 of them.
Yeah, right.
The lower price point camera, but I wanted to give people facts about those. I guess if I really wanted to do it, I should probably take the 2 that I like the most out of this and put them up against the higher price point cameras, and then say, okay, well, if you upgrade to this, should you upgrade to that? But honestly, I'm sick of it. I just want to run what I want to run, but I'm going to see this thing through. I did and you were a big help, and you weren't doing it as a way to, sell Exodus to me, but just understanding the different points of a camera. And I tried to do enough research to understand how the IR interferes with other cameras. Like, I've seen these people put 5 cameras on a vertical pole, and it's like in daylight you might have a decent test. But so what we're going to do is when after hunting season is over, the only way that I've talked to people and understood how I can do it, and you guys might even be able to help me understand the test more, is our church has a big like soccer football field that's perfectly flat, and I can drive T-post in that field facing the same direction 20 yards apart, and with the Quiet Cat and the side-by-side, we can mark off, all the cameras will be facing the same direction. They'll be far enough apart they won't interfere with each other, and then we'll test at different distances from the cameras, different speeds running straight across with different times a second one going across to get the second, to see if it picks up
the recovery time and stuff.
So not only are we checking the shutter speed going across in daylight and night at different speeds, I can run a second vehicle at the same speed just at a different time, and we'll basically use the football field and just grid it and say, okay, at 10 yards, at 20 yards, at 40 yards, and on out to truly test it. But I'm not going to do that until after these cameras have been out 6 months in the weather, because let's face it, some of this stuff might work great out of the box, but later on, and to be honest with you, when I'm making an investment, I want something, 3, 4, 5 years down the road that's going to work too. So,
absolutely.
That's kind of the test that I've committed to our listeners. I hope I get through it because I'm getting,
Well, that's
I just want to hunt, man. And
you know, it's you're definitely, you guys are on the right track and doing it in the most reasonable, efficient way a normal guy could possibly do it. There are a lot of marketing gimmicks out there, and that's one of the things that we speak on a lot is the education side. What is
it's like the seed coating on clover.
It's
Yeah.
I mean, there's the same thing you do with educating people how to read seed tags. We're doing the same thing with cameras and terminology and marketing gimmicks. You know,
Interpolation.
And you got customer service, you got warranty, you know.
Well,
I'm having to document. Okay, well, I'm gonna make up a problem on this cell camera, and I'm gonna call the 1-800 number. I'm serious. That's part of my test because that's
we're gonna let Jason know.
Yeah.
If you see a number from this,
You better answer it.
better answer.
What's the code you put in your phone so nobody recognizes
Star
it?
67.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean that's all part of it, and I don't know. It's
Well,
I hope people understand that we're trying to do this to help, but it would have been so much easier if I just hey guys at Exodus, I need to buy 15 cell cameras.
Yeah, right.
What can you help me with?
One of the things, like when
It would have been a whole lot easier if I would have just done that.
when you're really trying to test an individual product, and there's so many variables you can't control in a natural environment. The only way to do it with purpose, to have unaltered data, is to do it in a controlled environment, a single camera at a time. But it's not reasonable for one person to spend hours and hours and hours with a single camera and then duplicate those tests without any variables.
Okay, so
Especially
you want to
6.
test battery life.
Well, that's easy.
That's
easy.
No, it's not, because
is.
how do you say this camera gets the exact same number of opportunities to take a nighttime picture as this camera does in cold weather?
So you take
It's voltage.
so you can take a multimeter. You get an extra battery tray.
You're nerding out on me.
Well, listen, like this is what we do. I'm
my
telling
space
you.
modulator.
So you get a multimeter, you put it in DC, you jerry rig a battery tray essentially. So you're running 2 leads.
I get shocked.
No, it's relatively easy. And then you put it in this room. You trigger the camera during the day. It gives you a voltage reading or an amperage reading or whatever you're reading. And you do that for day, night, and your resting current. And then you can take those numbers
and calculate it.
Yeah, you take your voltage times the voltage of the circuit.
But for the most part,
or your amperage times the
most
voltage
part,
of the circuit.
it's like to compare 2 different strategies of hunting. No 2 people are going to have the same opportunity the exact same way on the same property.
Yes.
So and it's tough. It's when we were doing testing with Maximizer Mineral, the only way we could do a test about the effectiveness of use of mineral is to get 2 buck fawns that were twins, exact same genetics, and separate them and feed them separately to see what the anther growth would be. There is ways, but none of those ways that we've just talked about the average consumer can do. So our goal is just to try to help people, and what they decide to buy, what I decide to buy, I don't see there being a winner. I just want accurate information that's not a gimmick to help people make the best decision for them. And the MO at Real World has always been, if I educate people about a seed tag, if you guys educate people about the I'm going to get the term wrong. Interpolation or the sensor. What's the sensor thing?
The IR sensor?
The IR sensor. The differences between the quality in those. You have a good shot at earning that business.
Oh, 100%.
And you take care of your customers with customer service, and you have a good chance of getting them the second time. So I just think that the race to the bottom and the gimmick has gotten out of control, and my goal, and I hope my hypothesis is proven, is that you invest a little bit more money and you'll have a tool that lasts you year after year. You go the cheap way, you might have something that works till it gets cold. I don't know. We'll see when it gets later in the year.
Yep.
That's fair.
Yeah, I think that's a good point to stop and get this thing wrapped up. We're an hour and 20 minutes in, so it's a long episode for us, but a lot of lot of value in the conversation. I mean, we covered a lot of different.
Just don't ask me about Moon again. I'll text. Give me the questions ahead of time, and I'll text Adam and say, "I need this answer ahead of time." So
maybe I mean, with all the cell cams you're running, maybe that's something to
pay attention to.
Yeah. Daylight movement, but then it's like camera location.
It's funny because some cameras. It's funny because you talked about using cameras to next year's pattern.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because there's some cameras I have that it's for that, and some cameras I'm using it as live feed, making a decision, and how people use it differently. It's.
And cameras are designed for different reasons too. I mean, there's a lot we can get in on this topic, but we talked about it. I mean,
for another day.
Yeah, there's no need to bore you or waste your time.
So
internal conversations, I guess. But I guess let's get this thing wrapped up. If anybody wants to follow you personally or follow Real World, where are you going to drive traffic to? Chasing Giants.
Yeah, I try to keep Facebook more to family and that kind of stuff. I am posting a little bit stuff with the cell camera test on Facebook because it's a lot easier to put links and that kind of stuff on it. But Terry Peer, don't go Terry L. Peer. That's my old man, and he posts sermons. He's a minister, so if you want to watch a 3-point sermon on something, he's a very good minister, so you might enjoy that. But know the difference. Mine's got a big wall of bucks in my profile page, so it's pretty easy to decide. Instagram is Terry_Peer, P-E-E-R. Chasing Giants is where most of our stuff is, so you can listen to that on any major podcast platform, or go to Don Higgins's Higgins Outdoors YouTube page. We put them on there, along with some videos that we're trying to do about one a week. And his last one was about rope scrapes and how to use that to help check inventory. It's a pretty cool video that we put together for it. So, but you know. Most of the stuff I'm behind the scenes, dude. I just I like to run businesses and help make those kind of decisions. But yeah, most of my hunting stuff will be on Instagram.
Super cool. So
be on the lookout for his Whitetail Cribs episode, probably in 3 weeks.
That'll be interesting. I don't know that I want to see myself walking around.
It'll be good.
Did I look fat on camera?
No.
You had the pimp limp going on.
Oh man, walking around with this knee, it's killing me.
All right, folks, that's it. We're going to wrap this thing up. We appreciate everybody tuning in. If you guys find some value in this, let Terry know. He's not over here wasting his time chatting with two Ohio boys. But we appreciate everybody tuning in. If you haven't, as always, we always ask for you guys to leave a review. It's a tremendous help in growing our podcast, allowing us to reach new people so we can share these educational topics and hopefully help other hunters, new hunters, less experienced hunters, and maybe experienced hunters. Maybe we learn a couple things with some of the stuff you guys are leaving for us. So we just want to say thank you, and hope everyone has a great season.